What's up, guys? It's Papa Bear. We're gonna do a walkthrough of my latest track called Scorpion. Let's just do a quick playthrough first. Yeah, so that's it. So let's start with the most interesting part, which is the bass. So I started this track, really I wanted to concentrate a lot on the bass line, so I started with the sub bass first and just started a pattern with the kick and snare. Just to really like plan out things. And I actually started the sub bass with this patch. I always use Mr. Bill's sub, where he basically did something really smart. So I'll show you this oscilloscope. So what he basically explains is that like usually you have your sub bass is just a sine wave. So just a sub. So it's basically just a sine wave, right? And then you could add a second harmonic to it, and it becomes more squared off at the top. And, you know, that makes it louder for longer, as he says. So it'll make it sound louder without actually being louder, which I thought was cool. But I ended up taking that out because a lot of my basses I like to keep the min range intact for those basses, and it just kind of sounds a little muddy having both of them there. So took that out, but I thought that's a pretty cool concept. Yeah, and then most of my tracks I start by designing one bass in particular just to start off the track something different. So this was something that I saw in a tutorial. It's basically just a sine wave, distorted. I added some filters and phaser on it afterwards, so without any of the effects. I might have some saturation or something on it somewhere, but yeah, it's just a sine wave, and then you add this amp to it, and that's what gives it like the grittiness. And some more like crazy saturator to it to give it a little more. And I added this auto filter. Give it a little more flavor. And then I have another phaser. Just adds a little bit if I play with the dry wet. It's only one pole, so it's like basically making a dip in one part of the frequency spectrum. But I like using standing phasers in my sounds because it takes away from the sound in a way because it's cutting frequencies, but it just makes it sound a lot beefier if you set it right. And good trusty OTT. And then I think at this, maybe if I add these filters back in, these EQs back in, this glue compressor, I had it sound like this for a while. And the second part is basically the same thing. I'm just moving this auto filter, and I wanted this wubby section to sound a little grittier, or something needed to be added to it. So I started playing with Saturator, and I've never used this wave shaper before, so I decided to play with it, and I came across that and makes it a lot more grittier. And then a little saturator to make it a little louder. And I was trying to decide whether I would keep it on here or not. And I decided it just beefed it up too much. I had to keep it over there too. So yeah, that's basically that sound. Oh, and then I added this like screech on top of it. So this is basically, same thing. I didn't even add the saturator or anything to it. And I just used Redux to bit crush it. Let's see without these effects. Yeah, you can barely even hear it. But it just makes like a whining noise up in the higher frequencies here. And then I added a couple amps to it to make it a little louder, more pronounced, and a little grittier. And then just to mix it with this bass, I cut the just this top end. So that I thought sounded awesome, so I did that. And then in this section, since I'm using the filter on here, I wanted the screech to kind of follow it. So I basically took the pattern I drew for the auto filter and used it with a volume automation. It's like barely even noticeable, but it's the small details that count. And then yeah, I have a Pro Q on here at the end. I think I did during mixing. Um, and yeah, everything that is in this everything else section is sent to my sidechain bus. So here I this is the first project I'm using it for. I'm using this Duck Buddy plugin that Slink and some other people built, which is like a sidechaining plugin, and you can like view the audio in this big view, which is awesome. And another awesome thing about it is you could add like look ahead and ramping and stuff, so that it kind of pre-ducks, and you know, you don't get any I mean, not as much pops and clicks as you would with a compressor or something. I used to use Volume Shaper, but like I like how this you can like pre-duck, and then just having the ability to, you know, stack the signal that you're sidechaining above the signal that you're sidechaining from. Like, I thought that was really cool. It's really helpful. And I kind of made it into like a makeshift what do you call it, multiband. So I have like a split where I have two different curves. So like the top end, you really only need to sidechain the where the click is of the kick. So I have that like a lot steeper and a lot sooner than the bottom, which is for the sub, and I have the, you know, the same thing for the kick and the snare. So that's that. So after that, I think, oh yeah, I was working on like, I was watching some videos on how to make sounds that are like similar to Tipper. And basically what he does is just band passes a lot of resonance. So like for the sound, for instance, just a band pass with a lot of resonance on a saw wave, some soft clipping phaser, and then I put a corpus on it. This is like an awesome tip if you need to beef up your sound a bit. Let's see what it sounds like without. So it's really like thin, makes it a little thicker. You can sidechain it to the MIDI from this same channel, so that the pitch follows, you know, the pitch of the resonator from the corpus follows the pitch of your sound, which is awesome. And then yeah, we have an amp. Not really doing much, putting a little more top end on there. Same thing with distortion, just adding a little bit more high end flavor. OTT, of course. So I have this so it's low passing in when it comes in. And then I was noticing some weird panning going on. See, it's like mostly to the right side, so I shifted a little bit more to the left, and then you know, bumped up the width on it. So that's one sound. This other sound, which I think is the most Scorpion-like sound in this this track, is this and that was a really cool sound to make, because it's kind of like breaking the breaking the synth almost. Basically what I'm doing is playing this saw wave as low as I can possibly get it to go. So like if I put another serum here. So you see, like, the lower that you play it, the becomes that like choppy sound, and then you can just filter it. So you just get that high end. And then when you pitch bend it, it speeds up those chops. So I basically used that kind of a idea to make this. So I think it's like a pitch bending up to down, I think. Maybe I'm not doing it in the pitch bend. Oh, that's right. I did it in the plugin itself, so I have this on the master tuning. That's what I did. So I'm basically turning this knob to turn the speed up, which I think is actually turning it down. So it's going down in pitch. And I'm using that filter cutoff to like let the lows gradually come in. And then, you know, again, I've got this amp, just a common theme for this project, it seems. There, it sounds like a little watery, so made that sound a little pluckier. Saturator, of course, EQ. It's this low mid-range in the end of the plucks was a little loud, so I lowered that down. And we also have I got a grain delay on this, and that I am with this track here, this automation track. Oh no, not that one. Did I not? Here it is. I guess I didn't bump that one out. So I'm starting it at 66%, and then it's going down to 0 towards the end. So if I were to just do this quick, keep that up. So you hear that delay. It's what the grain delay basically does is chops your signal into tiny pieces, tiny pieces, almost like a granular synthesis, hence the grain delay. And it you can do a lot of wacky things like change the pitch with each grain and stuff like that. But I liked that sound a lot, so I liked it in the beginning of the sound, and hence why I took it out at the end with that dry wet. But it adds a little bit more stereo to it too, which is cool. And I did a little bit more stereo processing here, just you know, raising the high end on the sides, and then finally a little reverb at the end. Yeah, so that sounds really cool. So those are those two sounds. We have this metallic growl sound, which came in a little bit later, and it's kind of cool how it worked out, because like this, you'll see this this, you know, only has 3 peaks, but if we add the kick and snare, because that snare hits right where this gap is, like it's almost like it's sidechaining itself. So it when you hear it in the song, it kind of sounds like there's a peak here, but there isn't, because it's, you know, the snare is just going over it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then yeah, I do this a lot because this sounds very we got the unison on. Anything that has unison is gonna sound different every time you play it, just because of the way the different voices are phasing with each other. So I like to kind of audition it and record it out in a loop and pick the best version of it and use that everywhere. So that's where this audio track came from here. Yeah, and then here's like the processing for it. So I had an auto filter on, I took it out. I use this, I forget where I got this fat rack. It was off of some YouTube video. Or maybe I just Googled it. I don't know. But this rack I put on like almost everything because it just beefs everything up. So, and it's got a lot of options here. So like the meat will add some like distortion to it. And then we got a soft overdrive, OTT, regular OTT, and those are basically dry wets for those OTTs. And then there's also drive, of course, and a stereo option, which basically uses the Haas effect. It's a very, very, very short delay between the left and right channels, and that will widen it, but doesn't sound good on everything. So I usually turn that off for most things, but every once in a while that does do the trick. But yeah, I love this rack. And then again, we have the Corpus here. Just to thicken it up. It does really well to add like low end to your sound and thicken it up. So I use it a lot for that. We got our EQ and Soothe. So this plugin is really cool. Do we have it sidechained? No. So this basically what it does is it finds all the peaks in your sound and like dynamically lowers your peaks to like soften it basically. And you can so let's see. We can listen to basically only what it's taking out. So that's all like the resonance that it's taking out. And then we can it's very, very subtle, but it smooths out the sound a little bit. Yeah, and this sound, so I think the only sounds that I created specifically for this, like from scratch, were these two basses I showed before, and these two Tipper style tracks. I think everything else came from presets that I already had. I like to do separate sessions where I'm, watching YouTube videos and creating sounds and whatever, and I'll just save them as presets and, forget about them for the most part. But it helps, like, when I'm building a track, I can go through those presets and, it's good for a starting point because I'll go in and change things afterwards, to make it sound, to fit the track more or make it sound different. But it's always good to have a starting point. So yeah, I had the drop without these high end. So that's how I had it to begin with, but I thought it needed a little bit more movement while those basses were going on, so I added these little high-end wubs. It's basically like a combination of two sounds, and then in the second drop I switch it out for another one. The higher one I switch out for another high one, but yeah, so it's a combination of those two sounds. Actually, this one I might have created for this track too. from scratch, but it's like nothing fancy. It's just a high pass saw wave. Yeah, I put a lot of pulse width on. Pulse width modulation, unison. I didn't have to like re-record this one because it's very high pitched, this sound. So I didn't feel the need to re-record it. It sounds pretty much the same every time. And then we got some distortion, phaser, delay, compressor, EQ on there. Along with Fat Rack again. Some more bumping up the high end on the sides. And I use this shifter in frequency mode because you can tell the difference like if I have it off. I don't know, it just gives it more, I don't know. It's just shifting the frequencies down a little bit, and it gives it a little more beef to it. I thought that sounded good, so a lot of what I do is just experimenting with things, like having a general idea of how they work. Some compressor. Oh yeah, and then we have the reverb on here, and I do this a lot for either for things that don't have dry wet or things that do have dry wet, but it's like I think it's better to do it this way. Basically I put it into an audio effect rack and I create a dry channel with no effects on it, so this will basically, like, if I don't have the reverb, I can keep that dry channel at the same loudness that it was before, and then just mix in the signal with the reverb as loud as I need it. I feel like that gives me the best results. That's how I do things. For the most part, for certain things. Definitely reverb though. And then yeah, this low wub, I think this came from a patch of mine that I had saved, but I think I messed with the LFO a little bit. But yeah, I'm not gonna go too into it. But yeah, Fat Rack, another EQ, Pro Q. So this was taking out some frequencies I didn't like a little bit. I honestly don't remember why I added this. I might have added it when I was changing the pitch of this a little bit more. But I winded up, you see these tracks that I have deactivated. These MIDI tracks. So I'm guessing it was for that, but kept it in anyway. It doesn't do any harm. And then if we go to the other drop, so I always like to make something different in the second drop. Otherwise, it's just like, why have a second drop? So I added in this other screech here, screech sound. And I just raised the octave. This is a really cool sound that I found a tutorial for on YouTube, and I basically I think I changed this LFO because otherwise it was like more like this. No. something like that, but I wanted it to be more plucky. Yeah. So that's that sound. Not much going on with that one. And then this this lead drop sound. It's basically just a copy from the sound in the verse. I'll go into that in a little bit. But I have my kick and snare in one channel and my percussion in another channel. Don't crash. And I think I did that because here I'll play. So something that I learned from watching a Fox Stevenson live stream that he did was he adds what he calls jank to the percussion sounds, which is similar to swing, but it's not really swing because it's basically all of the sounds moved. So I put all the percussion into its own channel so that I can add a little bit of track delay on that. So basically all the hits are a little tiny bit later than they should be. Yeah, if we turn that up like a bunch, you'll like really hear it. So obviously it sounds a little crazy, but yeah, I think I had that at 10. Yeah, and it just adds a little bit of it's kind of like swing, but not really. Swing would be more like if you kind of offsetted a few notes, made like this one a little bit later, and something like that, but not all of the notes. But I think it sounds really cool. And it makes it sound a little more like humanized, I think. Yeah, and then my kicks, all my kicks I make in Kick VST, Kick 2. And yeah, add a little harmonic to the sub to give it that square, like I talked about with the sub instrument. Makes it hit a little harder. I actually winded up pulling it down the sub to while I was mixing it. So I think it was hitting a little too hard compared to my sub instrument. But yeah, so I always like tune this to the same key as the track. It's just and this is an E, so I have it on E, and then I just basically just play with this guy until I get something that sounds good. Add some clicks to it, maybe a little EQ, some distortion. I think I added for this one. I don't always add distortion, sometimes it doesn't sound great, but I added it for this one. This is for signal sharing for the sidechain. And then these were just to make some of these downlifters. So this one. Yeah, so that's from the snare. I just put a ton of reverb on the snare to make that impact there. And my snares, I've gotten into the habit of layering my snares. So still soloing that. So that's like the transient I had for the snare. I thought it sounded really awesome, so I kept that as the transient. And then I'm layering on top of it this more traditional like dubstep white noise kind of a clap. Not as crazy and compressed as a dubstep clap, but I somewhere down the line here I'm saturating it. a little bit of reverb on it. Yeah. And, you know, when you're layering sounds over each other, you always have to, like, EQ at least one of them to make sure that, like, things aren't covering each other up. So, like, we... There we go. See, it just sounds like muddy, right? Like neither of them sound good together, but doing this, basically what I'm doing is if you look at this, you see there's like a peak here. Basically just cutting those peaks here and kind of raising up the middle a little bit more, so that those peaks still stand out in the other sound, while this is basically just filling in the rest of it. So that's like for the drop, but for the intro, I think this I winded up keeping like exactly the same, the kick, but I always create like a different version of the kick and snare for the intro, so that like they hit a little less hard as the drop does, so it, you know, makes the drop just sound better in comparison. But yeah, the kick I kept the same. The snare, I think I basically just took off this layer and just kept this this transient hit. It sounded really cool. I really like this sample, so definitely wanted to highlight that there. That was a good way to do it. There I got, you know, a bunch of crashes, downlifters, and sub drop I made, white noise stuff. I guess I'll get into the build in a little bit, but for the intro, it's basically just that same, even the same pattern I think I did for the for these two sounds. Maybe I changed the this note here, raise that up, but yeah, other than that, those are the same two sounds. I made a pluck here in Vital. Just basically just sine wave, some noise, a filter, a plucky envelope, sidechain, multiband compression, a little bit of delay, actually a lot of delay. I wanted the delay to ring out, a little bit of distortion, which isn't really doing much distorting, it's actually just bringing the level up, I think, really. And then some reverb. I used the reverb in Vital for this one. Yeah, so that's that sound, a little saturation at the end. Yeah, so then for this lead sound, this is actually silent. So I have a a patch that mimics like Space Lace's lead sound he used in a couple of his songs, like Say It Ain't So. He uses that sound, but I changed it up a bit to kind of fit this a little bit more. It's got a little bit of filter on it, and pitch bend. Just basically coming from that wheel. I had to change the pitch bend to be for, or not the pitch bend, the vibrato. That's what I meant to say, not pitch bend. the vibrato I had to change from to coming from the mod wheel, because in the preset it was just fading in by itself, but I wanted to control it a little bit more, so I put it on this mod wheel. And also for the cutoff, I changed the attack to the attack for this filter based on different hits. You can see it going up and down. So that some hits were a little pluckier than others, and I thought that sounded really good. And I basically just copied this pattern here and changed it up a bit for that sound. And then I also use that same sound for the build. I rendered it to audio because if I solo this, you could the phasing in it. You could kind of sounds like a wah-wah pedal, and you can hear it as it's building up. But I wanted it to end with a really good wah, basically. So I rendered that out like I had to loop it like at least like 20 times to get the one that I wanted. But I rendered it out to audio so that I could. Yeah, here's the instrument for it. I rendered it out to audio so that I can assure that I get that sound I want. So that's pretty gnarly. But yeah. So, and then I do this a lot. I'll take sounds from the drop and put them in the intro just to kind of tease them a bit. But this one actually wasn't from the drop. This one I just added. But yeah, nothing special here really. It's just a really fast, almost like a pluck even on the low pass filter. Some distortion and stuff, but yeah, so that's that. A little reverb on it. I think the patch I had a reverb on it, but I took that off and put it in here because I wanted to do a little bit more to the sound before I added the reverb to it. So reverb, like, you pretty much always want that to be last in your chain, or else you start saturating and compressing your reverb, which sounds awful. But I got that fat rack on it, some EQ, saturation, reverb. This sound is from the drop. Oh, I think I actually forgot to go over the sound when I did the drop. Let me go back to that. I'm doing this all in one take with no preparation, so bear with me. This guy. This sounds pretty gnarly. This was a patch I had. This wavetable sounds awesome, but yeah, it's got some filter movement there. We got like a notch filter, a bunch of other stuff to beef it up, hyperintervention, distortion, chorus, comb filter, comb plus filter, and then I ran that through amp here. And I have two different like versions of the sound, so this one. So I'm like modulating the LFO rate there. Just so this is 2. This is 1. Yeah, Yeah, so that's adding a lot of like wetness to it. The audio effect rack here. So I did that same thing with the wet and dry. I think this might be the first time I've ever done it with an auto filter, but it sounded awesome. So like if we just solo the wet channel, like it sounds a little weaker. And then I basically mixed, instead of mixing in the wet signal, I mixed in the dry signal. So like that's the dry signal. And so it basically lets in some of that high end while still keeping that like vocally sound of the auto filter. So that really worked out for this sound. But yeah, that going to the good old trusty fat rack. And then I'm doing that same trick with another reverb at the end here. I think I changed like the pitch bend direction in the second half for that first hit. Yeah, so I think, am I missing anything else in the drop? I don't think so. I think that was it for the intro, right? And I guess for the build, so yeah, I break it here. Basically just taking out the drums, calling it a break. Putting in some downlifters, some impacts, sub drop. But yeah, for here, these kind of go up in pitch. Like towards the end, you don't really hear it very well because it's kind of being masked by the rest of the sounds. And because of the sidechain, because those yeah, the hits keep getting faster and faster, and the side chaining, it's more and more. But for the drop, I was looking for in Turnbuckle by Figure. He has this sample of WWE announcer that I really wanted to steal, but I couldn't find it. So I have a pack of vocals that I winded up just sorting through and finding some. So I found this first one. Check this out. I basically just warped it to make it fit. I ended up flattening it, which is why I don't see the warping, but to make it fit to the beat, I warped it and then copied that check. Just made it almost like a record scratchish kind of a feel to it. So I got another frequency shifter on here. This shifter is new to Ableton Live. I was really glad when they added it. Yeah, so it just starts at 0, and then towards the end I just lower it. Thought that sounded really cool. Yeah, cut that frequency. If you're wearing headphones, you can probably hear it. It's like a lower. Actually, I can do this. If I boost it. Basically cutting that out. It's a little too much. Here's an EQ not doing anything. And then echo. And the echo, I'm basically just turning it on here. So that none of this echoes here. Letting that ride out. And then usually when I'm doing a drop, I'll just let it, you know, without the drums. So it'll be like basically nothing, then you know, playing at the same time as the vocals. But for this track, I did something different, which sounded really awesome and different from what I usually do, I think. So I basically took the end of, I think it was like here, just copied it over here for the percussion, did the same with the kick and snare, so that there's really no like gap in the drums, you know, before it drops. And then I took that cool pluck sound and made that like, you know, flow into the drop. I think I changed something with the vocal. I don't know what it is. Something sounds different. Anyway, I just have to remember not to save this project. But yeah, so I thought that was really cool. Like every once in a while when you're producing something, you'll just do something and try it out, and then it's just like instantly like, yeah, that's awesome, I'm keeping it. That was one of those moments. Yeah, I think that's, I guess I can explain the second vocal here. It's pretty much the same concept. I don't think I frequency shifted this one. I don't think this is doing anything. Oh no, I used the formant shift on this. That's right. So
turn up the bass. Turn up the bass. Turn up the bass.
So I just made it sound a little lower, more manly, I guess.
Turn up the bass. Turn up the bass.
So that's mainly that. I EQ'd it to match, basically match this one. It sounded a little more in the lower end, so I had to boost up the highs to make it match a little bit better. Compressing it to make it a little louder. Saturation. Doing the same thing with the echo. Did a little different pattern for the before it. It's just like a little nice like lead into it, I think. And yeah, intro and outro are basically just filler, so not much to go over there to show you. What else? I messed something else up apparently. I don't know what's missing. Anyway. That's what it was. There we go. All right, but yeah, this is basically just high pass version of the intro. High pass going in. High pass version of the build, and this is just a dumbed down version of the verse. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Oh, the other thing I did with the drop, one last thing. I had this little quick white noise sweep. And that was a little tension grabbing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, all that YouTuber things that people say. And I usually stream on Twitch on Wednesday nights pretty regularly at 7 o'clock. So you can catch me there, twitch.tv/PapaBearVibes. And take care. Brush your hair.